CTO at Telltale Games. We make interactive narrative games where we work with great franchises like The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones and Borderlands to create story worlds that players can interact in. And today I'm going to talk about how we use the cloud. And I've got to say I was in the same place as Chris when I sat down to think about this. What is cloud gaming? And maybe it's because the cloud is kind of a intentionally obtuse type of word where it seems huge and big and infinite. It's real hard for anybody to get their hands around, obviously. So we have that issue with consumers and developers and everyone else. So we can continue to work on it. But the question is it a genre? You know, is anybody at home right now saying, "Dude, let's cloud game tonight. It's gonna be awesome." I don't think anyone's there yet. Is it a platform? Could be, but certainly not yet. Or is it a monetization strategy? I think it's an enabling portion of a monetization strategy, and people use a lot of data as part of their monetization strategy, but I don't think that defines it. So I, like Chris, went out and looked for the definition. I didn't work as hard. I just went to Google, typed it in and said, hey, what is the definition? And that's the definition right there. And I think kind of short of the video or pixel streaming part of the definition, this is probably the definition that's been up since 2001 with the guys from Exent or Stream Theory or Yummy, talking about how their streaming services work. So I think you listen to Chris, at the same time, there's this infinite opportunity at play as well. So we've got this thing that is defined very, very simply at like the minimum it can possibly be, and then we've got infinite possibility. And I think that's an issue that as an industry, the games industry is always up against every time we want to jump from something like this to reality. I think watching virtual reality, you're probably in a similar space. If we had done this conference 3 years ago, you talk about many of the same things, what a virtual reality game can be. And that's just starting to really take root with actual product as well. So what I want to talk about is how Telltale views the cloud, how we use the cloud or how we view the future of our games using the cloud and helping us tell bigger, greater stories and really integrate games deeper and deeper into people's entertainment experiences. So we look at it very much like Chris laid out. What is it that gamers really think about and players really think about when they think about the cloud, and what is it that we know they want based on our experience? Well, we know they want to save their save games across all platforms. They want to be able to buy it on one platform, and they own multiple platforms, so they want to be able to take it to multiple devices. And they want to be able to start from wherever they were, and it's just a very kind of simple thing, but difficult to pull off for different reasons. And we consider that kind of untethered access to the game or unrestricted access to the game. They also want to know, we know that people want to have a view into how others experience the content. We allow people to play and craft their own experience based on their choices. Then they want to compare themselves to others. The stat screens at the end of our games have been one of the most popular parts of what we've done. And we know that our audience greatly appreciates this because it creates a community feel and kind of an enhanced water cooler. Somewhere where you can sit down and say, wow, I know the other experiences were different because I can see it here. And why would someone choose that? Why did you choose that? Why did I choose this? So we find people really being interested in that notion. And finally, one thing that we find it's a great value to us, and we find that our players really love it, is as they go through and play, we know what they're doing. And their choices, the way they feel about the game, is being accounted for by our development team. And we call this live development. So we will tailor our story to continue to take player input, look at data, and say, okay, these decisions are the decisions that can affect character arcs and character stories and storylines and things like that. And I think gamers really, and players really appreciate that when they're playing the story. So kind of giving some tangible examples of this stuff. I think the unrestricted entertainment notion of games where you can save across multiple platforms. I think Diablo just did a real big service working with the different platform holders to really push letting users use their games on different services and different consoles and all the platforms that they want. Players have been asking for this for years. This is their #1 demand, but the policy issues have been something that have been difficult to overcome. And I think that we've been able to achieve a lot in games recently, and we're continuing to do so. It's less of an issue with services like Netflix in the video business, where they're there. You can play a Netflix movie on your PlayStation, you can stop it, you can go to your iPad, pick it up, and continue the movie from where you were. You can go back and pick it up again. So, in that medium, it's already there, and they're already able to get this unrestricted entertainment experience across multiple devices. For us, the shared experiences, this is an example of our stat screen that comes up at the end of the game. This is something that's very big for us, and Telltale does in all of its games. It keeps people engaged, and this is our version of what a connected community of millions can look like. You can play your game and share that experience, but yet have a differentiated experience from an entire community. And if you look at things like, Twitch, where players are up there watching other people play games, watching other people experience games, the notion that their experience is similar but different is a huge piece, because they have that common experience, but they have their own experience. And finally, the next piece of driving the experience, when you have the game and you're making key choices like who lives and who dies, and how that continues to go on inside the game, that allows the user to decide what that play experience looks like. So it's a little bit like Chris talked about, how does the game remember what you did? Well, using the back-end data and looking at people's cloud experiences, we know whether Carly should be in the game or whether Doug should be in the game. And we know how many people prefer Carly to Doug and everything else. And we can continue to let that drive the experience, and our reaction on the development side is in response to that. And that allows it to give it that crafted feel, that tailored narrative feel, where the player is feeling like, this is my story, I'm creating this, I'm driving this. And it's because the game is informed by the data, and it's basically moving forward based on that data that it receives. I think the fourth piece, something that we didn't mention that's a huge breakthrough in all of this, is with what Amazon is doing between on the Kindle, using WhisperSync, being able to let people not only share their game experience across multiple platforms, but do it across different media. So I can go from reading a book on the Kindle to bringing it to my car and listening to it on a book from tape, and starting from the same spot. So it isn't only about being able to experience it on different platforms. It's being able to inform each platform what part of the media you should play and where you should take off from. So all of this right now is being crafted from a place with existing content and content that is arriving at the spot, but not planned to be there, not built from the ground up to do this. But it works really well, and they've proven with books and with audio tapes that you can integrate media, and they can be aware of each other, and they can know each other. And that's a key thing as Telltale thinks about it. When we look at the Telltale platform in the cloud, what we have is video services working as a way to get content pushed to multiple devices, that unrestricted experience across multiple devices by being hosted in the cloud. We have the Telltale platform, which also does the same thing, services all platforms, allows users to experience the content on multiple platforms. And we have them both living, linear and interactive, living together in the cloud, where they can share information, where they can be aware of each other, where the story can be informed by what the other piece of content is doing. So the content can work in sync. And what interactive enables us to do is to allow people to be players and people and consumers to be part of that experience. So when we build a narrative and we allow them to drive the narrative, that narrative can, the back-end data can support the game can talk to the show. If there's a book, it can talk to the book, and we can have an experience where it all works in sync. And the key point here is not that this is possible, but that you need the investment from the get-go to make this work. So in any of these cases, if you set out to try to execute something where anything's possible and you kind of get overloaded with what you could possibly do, we need to pull it down into the place where how can this all happen and how do we build the right thing to take advantage of what we have. And right now all the pieces are in place with the Telltale platform, with the cloud infrastructure, to have entertainment experiences that are multimedia and multi-format types of experiences focused on narrative. And we feel like we can do this with some of the biggest stories in the world, and we're going to continue to do it going into the future. So that's the presentation, and I have time for some questions if you'd like to ask.
Actually, how do you, I guess, cultivate designers who are prepared to create sort of cloud-based? Like, how do you find, I guess, the next generation, who didn't grow up with this? How do they train? How do they?
Well, I think at Telltale, the narrative piece is very much at the baseline of everything. So we're thinking about how to tell the story. So every time we're enabled with a new element that helps us do that better, the designers can use that to reinforce what they're doing. So it's always the focus of everything that we do. If we know that, in this case, if we knew that we had a story beat that required information from an episode of the show that someone hadn't watched yet, that would be something we could take into account. If it was a story beat where we wanted to know how users did the last time, should we build it out aggressively or not, we know what people chose. They're helping us basically interactively drive that experience. So it is certainly a kind of specific thing to what we do, but there's a real appetite for figuring it out because it helps us be better storytellers, and we see the opportunity there. All right. This is break time.